Welcome home, everyone. It has been a little while. I missed you. It's been a lot going on. I have been working diligently with some amazing partners on the local, state, and national level on our State of the People Power Tour, and that has made it so my travel days would interfere with this podcast, this solo pod. And I just really appreciate your patience. Today we're talking about something that I've learned a lot more about from being on the ground and from working with some amazing people. One of them is Pastor Mike McBride, who has become a fast brother to me. He runs an organization called Live Free USA. He's the executive director, partnering with folks all over the country on community violence intervention programs. And just the other day, we were in Detroit, Michigan, at a juvenile detention center facility where we got to speak to some young folks who have been impacted by programs just like Pastor Mike's. And I know that they could certainly benefit from access to resources like the ones that Pastor Mike and Live Free provide every single day. So I am doing this elongated intro because I am waiting to see his face and I'm wondering if there's a technical issue. There he is. Hey, Pastor Mike.
What it
Um,
do?
how are you, brother?
Glad to be talking to the Northwest Wonder
Oh my
called
gosh.
Angela Rye.
You guys just know that I thought
What?
that I was bad at geography. I really
Oh,
did.
here we go.
And then I met Pastor Mike. For some reason, he doesn't believe that I get to throw my doves up. And I don't
No, you
understand
do.
why.
You
He
do get to
thinks that
throw it
my
up. You just
doves have
gotta,
to be a
you gotta
north.
put it. You gotta put
That's
it
a A.
in. You
That's
gotta
a
put it.
A.
What's
That's
the
a A.
in? What's
I
the
don't know.
in?
Either way, I'm not a YN and I'm not going to rep the Northwest Coast or the Pacific Northwest Coast. It's West Coast all day, baby. And
All
since he's
right.
dealing hope, I know he's not going to troll me with that today.
No, not today. It's
Not
great to talk
today.
to the West Coast Wonder,
Thank you. I'll take it.
Angela Rye.
A WCW. I'll take it. But we have gotten to do so much more together, and I just feel like, every time I see my good brother, I'm like, where he been all my life? But he been busy doing the work of the Lord in the streets beyond the four walls of the sanctuary. And it is really, really a pleasure to have gotten a journey with you this far. I can't wait to see what else God has in store. But first we're gonna fight for these programs. So this is what I want to talk to you about. I saw, as the Bible would say, your countenance drop.
Mm.
It was, I think were we in New Orleans when did you first learn? Okay, so we learned about these cuts in New Orleans. And Pastor Mike, I want you to help people understand community violence intervention work is the thing that saves our young people more than any law enforcement officer ever could.
Mm-hmm.
9.5, I say 9.9 times out of 10. It is
Mm-hmm.
the work that puts, the Ray Lewises and the Skrills and the Tefts in front of whatever was going to come between one young person and another. It is conflict resolution. It is telling people your own harrowing stories. It is helping people to understand the importance that life does in fact matter. We have young people nowadays, even in my own community, Seattle, Seward Park is, we had the loop. Some kids just got shot at Seward Park the other day. So
Mm.
this work is so important. Can you talk about the work that you all have been getting funded through the federal government and how you plan to pivot now?
Well, it's great to be with you, Angela, and thanks so much for the opportunity to hang out with you and the homies as part of your native land podcast family. I'll just quickly say that the scripture says, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God." And often we think of peace as the absence of conflict or violence, but
Mhm.
it is also has to be considered the presence of justice. Both of them have to be together. People want safety and they want justice. People don't want to be criminalized in their own communities as a price to pay to achieve some false sense of safety, which has largely been the experience of most Black folks in this country. What has now become known as community violence intervention in the past, it may have been known in shorthand as ceasefire, as focused deterrence, as cure violence. It has now kind of largely been described as community violence intervention. And it is a menu, if you will, a rising sector, a rising labor force and workforce of trained individuals who are skilled in public health interventions that interrupt lethal conflicts that are a result of interpersonal violence, largely with guns.
Yeah.
And this has become now in our, say, third or fourth decade of working and organizing, one of the best, if not the best, evaluated public safety, community safety set of interventions. And thankfully, in the last 4, 5, 6 years, they've started to scale all across the country. It is our life's work. When I say our, I'm talking about all of the peacemakers, all the violence interrupters, all of the community based organization senior executives, folks who've been doing this work for decades, largely
Mhm.
without remuneration or public appreciation. Community violence intervention is here to stay if we can organize to keep it so. And it's righteous work for sure.
I want to ask you this because I think so often on the policy making side, and I think you've heard me talk about this on the tour. I feel like there's something that happens where your advocacy could be fierce.
Mm,
You could be so intentional about what you're doing every single day, but there's a disconnect that happens along the road of strategy between strategy and like the folks on the ground. And this tour has brought me a lot closer to that. And I'm like, oh, I did have some gaps. I did have some blind spots. I know these programs need to be funded, but there's something I think that happens when a policymaker or a strategist or even like a bill author has to come face to face with some of the victims or the
mm.
victims' family members. So, can you talk about how you got into this work and why it's so important to you now? Like, what keeps you rooted and grounded in this work, Pastor Mike?
Two quick stories. I was a youth pastor in San Jose, California, in the 99, 2000 era. I got beat up by some cops while I was a youth pastor down there, physically, sexually assaulted in the course of an arrest. A number of my young people said to me, Pastor Mike, this happens to us all the time. I said, why you never said anything to me? They said, because we didn't expect the church to respond to this. And I
Wow.
heard God speak to me and say, what is it about the ministry you're creating where these children and their families will trust you with the salvation of their souls, but not the safety of their bodies?
Woo.
These children were experiencing violence at the hands of police and in their own communities, and the church was not being responsive. I went to Duke, came home, started to do more community work, particularly around this. I was introduced to this work by Eugene Rivers, Reverend Jeff Brown, Tiffany Cross, folks who came out of the Boston experience of this work, and began to do some of this work here in Berkeley, Oakland, and had to bury a teenager. Over 500 young people attended the funeral. I asked how many of you have been to more than one funeral. All of the young people raised their hand. These are teenagers. 5 funerals. All the young people still had their hands up. I got as high as 10. Asking how many have been to 10 funerals. Half of the children had their hands lifted while they were weeping. And I was reminded that whatever work I'm doing is not adequate. If the young people in
Mm.
my community are teenagers and they've been to more than 10 funerals, whatever I'm doing, whether it's preaching, whether it's volunteering in the schools, whether it's getting people jobs, is not adequate because our children are not safe. Either they're dying or they're dealing with perpetual grief. And I found myself being challenged to not only be a proclaimer of peace, but also, as much as I can, a maker, a creator of peace.
Yeah.
And these strategies were the best way to do so in a structured manner. And it forced us to organize people like the Larrys and the others all across the country in my own neighborhood to go to be face to face with elected officials, law enforcement leaders, preachers, and respectable Black people in every city across the country where we work, and declare that our story of violence and trauma is not something that can be solved by arrest alone.
Mm.
That we need a radical intervention that is public health driven, that is people centered, and more importantly, that is results based. And this is the strategy. There is no strategy that comes close to these menu of strategies We had found a lot of elected officials and a lot of law enforcement leaders at the time were not familiar with these strategies, and we had to do organizing, filling community centers,
Mhm.
churches, um, uh, 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 mayor's offices, and congressional representatives' offices. We had to build organizing power to push our leaders to champion, resource, scale these strategies. And that work is still ongoing, quite frankly, but we're in a good place historically now. We just got to keep it cooking.
So CVI funding was cut by this administration, $150 million in federal grants,
Mhm.
right through the Department of Justice. What was the program? I can't remember the name of the grant program.
It was all in the Office of Justice programs, and a lot of those were the
Mm-hmm.
Burns Justice Grants. Things that we were able to, through lots of organizing and advocacy, our whole field get uh, resources that were put into the Safer Communities Act, which
Yeah.
the Biden administration championed and signed. Those dollars were cut, and it's been devastating. And it's important to acknowledge that that was just our little part of the cuts, but all
Yeah.
the other kind of resources in the Department of Justice that deal with victim services and juvenile justice and child protection and substance abuse, that all comes to a valuation of almost $820 million
Mm.
were cut. And it's devastating. It's devastating to all those who care about safety and justice.
Well, I want to bring in Wesley Moore, who runs an organization called Our Brothers Keepers. And Hi, Wesley, how are you?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
Very good. Thank you. You look like you ready for customer service. That's good. That's the field y'all are in. Let's go. So
Yes, definitely.
I wanna ask you what the impact of these federal cuts have meant to your program, because so often we talk about this, at least for me, let me own my stuff. I talk about this in numbers, in data, and the names of the programs, but we don't necessarily see the direct impact. What do these cuts mean to your programs like yours, Our Brothers Keepers?
It had affected our program tremendously. From us housing over 50 to 60 homeless youth. I was a victim of homeless youth that got me into drugs and violence, and so I know that the direction that it can take you, and also it affected us by every summer that we give ages 14 to 17 years old jobs opportunity, teach them some type of job work skill that they can grab on, still grabbing a gun, grabbing drugs. They in survival mode. So this year we're not able to give out that type of service. We just paying them $15 an hour to keep them away from the street. We all know that if these kids can't get into a program to give them a better outcome in life, they're gonna tend to go to the left side to where somebody else can put something in their hand to help feed their family, help take care of bills. We noticed last year a lot of our students have not committed a crime in 18 months. They had the group down here not, called Kia Boys. I'm quite sure it's around the whole United
Mhm.
States, but we had seven in our program have not stole a car in 18 months because we gave them an outlook in life to um, point their directions towards something that can help make them a productive person into life.
Where how did you get into involved in this work? What's your story attached to this?
Um, I've been homeless all my life. Started at the age of 12, 13 years old. My mom was on drugs. My father was in and out of my life. And I'm the oldest of my brothers and sisters. I'm 49 years old. So I was forced to be a father at 13 years old, taking care of my brothers and sisters and stuff. And I tended to the streets and stuff to be able to keep our lights on, give some food on to the my brothers and sisters and stuff. And my other brother underneath me who helped me also started this program. He's the assistant director, Mark Moore. We hit the streets, and next thing you know, I was able to take care of my family, but I also was hurting my family because at age 18 years old, I was sentenced to 20 years. I was sentenced to 20 years, and then I
Mm,
came back home when I was 33 years old, did 15 years and stuff. So when I got out, I vowed to come back to my community to give them an opportunity to don't go down the road I went to. And during that course, I learned how to start remodeling homes, doing electric, plumbing, and stuff like that. And me and my brother had bought this property, and we was rehabbing it. Our whole goal was to rehab it and put it back on to the market and sell it. But we noticed we had a lot of at-risk use, and I don't like to call them at-risk use. I like to
Mhm.
say we the one that's at risk and not loving them and showing them the right direction. But we noticed they was homeless and stuff, so we start teaching them the type of trade and start paying them. They were not the age 14, 15, 16 years old. So as that went, we end up start opening up the program, which became Our Brothers Keeper. It gave them a outlook in life, to take a different direction. And I noticed by looking at them same kids, it was a reflection of myself. And I seen that they had no parent inside the house. um, One had a child when he was 14 years old, which I had my first
Mhm.
son when I was 14 years old.
Mhm.
So I seen the reflection of where they heading to. And now it's 5 years later, and with this funding's being cut, I just noticed over the weekend we have our city was praising how the violence is down.
Mhm.
Within this month, we done had 10 to 12 homicides. Over the weekend, we just had some more homicide. Last night, we just had another homicide. But these is now the schools is getting out. So now we really about to see the risk of homicides, robberies, breaking in cars, stealing cars, and stuff like that because they cutting so many of these
Mhm.
programs, funding. These kids don't have nowhere to go.
Yeah. I'm curious to know, and we actually got a question in from Adrian Jordan. Pastor Mike, I want to come to you on this first. When we first heard about this, my natural default is like, okay, how do we fix this? And so we talked about city funding and state funding, but someone named Adrian Jordan asked if these can be privately funded. If you all could raise your own resources to be able to make an impact, to have the similar impact that you've been having, and then the type of impact I know you want to see, Pastor Mike. You talked about all those hands going up at a funeral. I know you wish that there were no hands that could go up and hopefully not
Right.
even be at the funeral. So what types of resources can you raise privately? What do you need to see from the state and local government to be able to make up for this huge gap?
Yeah, let me just try to contextualize it. Like, it's
Yeah.
super important for people to understand that in your city, all the data research has shown us that less than 1%, some cities numbers are less than half of 1% of your whole city's population is driving or caught up in about 60 to 70% of the lethal gun violence conflicts, which just is to
Wow.
say, if you have 100 shootings in your city, it's not because of 100 people shooting each other. It's likely a small number of individuals who are caught in lethal conflicts and they are they're volume offenders. Those individuals are the individuals, the lion's share of these resources from the federal, state, and local should be targeting when we're talking about reducing gun violence. These strategies, CVI, aren't necessarily attempting to reduce everything else, although you will find that a number of folks who are engaged in robberies, who are engaged in other kind of violent offenses, are also some of these individuals. Why is that important? It's important to say that because these are targeted resources that should impact targeted individuals or networks in our communities. And I often find that we think the problem is much bigger
Mhm.
than it is. And so our brains can't get wrapped around how vitally important this kind of investment is. Now, there's several things that we have to acknowledge. First of all, the federal dollars were so important to us because many local mayors, city council members, county boards of supervisors, or governors, their state legislatures would not fund these strategies with the tax base of the local or the state. And so we had to go to the federal to
Mhm.
almost be an innovation like catalyst for these strategies. Now, we've always depended on philanthropy to kind of bridge some of our gaps. But just like a police department would never ask philanthropy to fund their police budgets,
Yeah.
we're trying to get to a place in a moment where no philanthropy is being expected to fund public safety and community safety. This should be a bill, a cost that the local municipality and the state legislatures should fund themselves. And so, yes, to your person's question, we got to organize locally. Now that we know for well over a decade, particularly with the federal dollars that were infused into this post COVID. Now we know these strategies work. We now need local mayors and local city council members to take local dollars and fund the local ecosystems of these strategies. It would be great to continue to have federal funding, and we're going to keep working to have federal funding. But every municipality is the richest institution in every city, more than philanthropy, more than a Fortune 500 company. Every local municipality can support these strategies. What we have to do is organize people, organize the stories, the ideas, and we have to push in their local municipal budgets to fund it. In the meantime, if you're a philanthropic partner, if you are an individually wealthy person, someone with high resources, and you're trying to put dollars on the ground now to make our summers less bloody and less lethal, then yes, you should find an organization like our good brother here on the call, or you can visit us at liveforusa.org, and we can plug you into all kinds of organizations locally that you can support in every city we're talking about all across the country. But resources are needed, and they're needed now.
What is the like the number? And I'm gonna come to you too, Wes. But like, what is the number you're like in order to get through this summer? This is what we need. Whether it's from, well, let's wait on city and state. But let's say that like if people could donate, like what's the number that you're like, this is what I know we need.
Oh man, I mean, I think you have to go city by city. If you
Mm-hmm.
imagine that half of $500 million were cut, I think that number is a real number. I mean,
Yeah.
and that's over 40, 50 cities we're talking about. 220 organizations were receiving those dollars. Let me just use Oakland as an example because I know I have my hands wrapped around that number. We are
Mm-hmm.
serving well over 200 individuals in Oakland who are at the highest risk of shooting or being shot, extending to them about $40,000 to $50,000 worth of services for mental health support. They all have a case manager, an individual person who literally case manages them so they do not fall back into lethal conflicts. They get some resources on the side to help them with some job training and reintegration. And so in Oakland, if you times that by 200, that's about $4 to $5, $6 million just for
Mm-hmm.
a quarter, right? And so it's just really important to appreciate that
Yeah.
the tax base has to fund this. Individually wealthy people can help provide gaps and bridges for individual organizations. But if you really care about this work and you care about anchoring this work, then we need everybody. I'm talking about from the pastor to the CEO to the teacher to the nurse to the parent to the elected official to the police. Everybody has to get on one accord and insist that we will invest in peace making in our communities. We will fund peace. We will make sure that the resources needed for brothers programs, but also case managers and intervention specialists and violence interrupters, that work will not be shorted because of an administration change at the local, state, and federal level.
Yeah, that's good. Wes, I want to ask you for your organization and the network of organizations that you're connected to in Columbus, Ohio. What do you see as like the most immediate need? You talked about 12 homicides just over the weekend, over Memorial Day weekend.
Um, I want to touch back what the pastor said, and I truly agree 100% with him. It's a city by city base, but I know speaking for our organization, um, we predominantly been getting $300,000 throughout the summer, and that's for intervention, prevention, mental health, housing, um, a wraparound service for the parents, job training skills and everything. And it seemed like it might be a lot of money, but it goes so fast when you putting kids through job training service, and then they working for 12 weeks throughout the summer program, making $15 an hour. So the money adds up pretty quick. And then the professionals that you got around them to keep them stable mentally more than anything, to be able to understand the job training skills that they about to get ready to learn, or just to know that they in a safe environment to where they don't got to worry about toting a gun or anything else and stuff, as well as the staff, and let them know that they okay. But um, it's we are getting support now because we partner up with one of our churches, City of Grace, down here in Columbus, seeing the good work that
Mhm.
we've been doing. and Pastor Mike Young, a great man. He seen what we was doing, and he understand what the outcome would be by us not being involved around the summertime with these youths. Um, you can have a program, but if you don't have um, the staff to understand what they about to receive, it's just gonna be a program.
Yeah.
But if you have a staff can understand what they're about to receive, and they see this every day, and they living in this, and they know the aunties, the grandmas, and stuff to prevent. And if we start preventing, we won't have to be doing an intervention. So um, by then doing all these cuts, now we got to do the intervention of what's about to get ready to happen. It's already happening. Summertime haven't even started already, and because of the budgets being cut, we know the homicides because we also work inside the schools. We know what's about to get ready to happen within these next couple weeks.
Mhm.
Yeah.
My team is working at schools, um, three of the most violent schools, to be honest, with the gangs and stuff. So we got the
Mhm.
opportunity to understand this is going to happen this day when they had this event. Over the weekend, they just had a taco event. But we working inside the school. We already reading the text message, the social media. They meeting at this time to go do fight and stuff. They actually met up at that time when
Mhm.
I made phone calls. Hey, make sure you try to get this prevented. Though two people end up getting shot. It was already on social media what they're gonna do. So programs like myself and other programs around the city, the revenue is gonna go up and down. But I know personally for our program, which is really low, that have 60 kids come in every day from 9 to 5 o'clock, and we got 10 staffs on there, LSIWs, mental health specialists, and RNs. It's really not no money, but you saving a life, and that's mean more to us than some money.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Wes, I really appreciate you coming on. We're gonna finish up with Pastor Mike, but I thank you so much for being here today. And I'm definitely sending prayers, love, and urging people to support the work you're doing in Columbus. So thank you so much for joining us.
100%.
I
Bless
appreciate
you,
it.
bro.
Thanks a lot.
Stay strong, my friend.
You too as well. Thank you.
Uh, so, Pastor Mike, there are a couple of questions that came in. One was about the church, and I thought this was particularly important for you given the role that you play. Um, the question from Marina Taylor is how much churches are investing in city programs. Like, are you seeing a shift? I know you talked about feeling particularly called, but are you seeing that same type of urgency and shift from clergy, from the church folk?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, the Live Free USA network is a largely faith based network of thousands of faith leaders who are working at the intersection of gun violence prevention, criminal justice reform, and civic engagement. We also have an extended network called the Black Church Freedom Fund, Black Church PAC. Again, pastors, faith leaders, people of faith who are working to leverage our political infrastructure and influence to scale up the support for these strategies. And so, what I will say is that yes, you have, and this is our 15th year. Live for USA is our 15th year of training pastors and congregation members to either provide programs, to influence policies, or to use their voices through prophetic proclamations to raise up peacemaking congregations. Of course, we could always use more, but we have as many pastors and faith leaders working on this as the number of pastors and faith leaders supporting Martin Luther King Jr. at the height of SCLC. I don't know if that's a condemnation or something to celebrate, but it is worth saying that
It's
there's a
I'm condemning it. Where are y'all at? I'm
there,
signing my church
there,
up today.
there,
How I sign my
yes,
church up?
go to liveforusa.org
I'm
and just
signing up
sign
my
up your
goddamn
your
today.
church, right?
Bishop
But
Reggie C. Witherspoon Sr.,
come
you
on in.
signed up.
Yeah, yeah, and we worked with Kojic in our earliest years. All the Pentecostal denominations is cooking with us on this. Now, it's important to say a couple things though. A lot of our pastors, youth pastors, but whether they be our brothers or sisters, etc., their role is not necessarily to be on the front lines because in
Mhm.
every city there are already frontline workers.
Yeah.
All right. So some of this work is the work of individuals like our dear brother from Columbus, who was just on. The church should not be replicating any new programs. We
Right.
ought to be supplementing through
Yes.
advocacy and organizing. A pastor would do Moore helped to organize his congregation and the surrounding neighborhoods and show up at a city council meeting, a county board of supervisors meeting, or the state legislature and demand that the local and state tax base be leveraged and invested in these strategies. I want to say we
Mhm.
got to bring organizing back because a lot of our work has walked away from organizing and power building and moved into a lot of services. And while services are important, the systems have to be restructured. The powers have to be challenged. And that's what I would put the challenge out to every pastor and faith leader. Let's organize our congregations to
Mhm.
be peacemakers through our voices, through the programmatic supports of these CVI efforts, and through the ways in which we challenge the systems.
I um I want to know if you have a recent example of why this work matters. And I think
Hmm.
I keep getting into this because, again, I think my challenge point was like, for me, the data is enough, right?
Hmm.
For me, the cuts are enough. But that's not true for everybody, brother. Like, we know there are some
Hmm.
folks who need to know, like, if I contribute my $100 that I have for this month to this entity, even if it's not the 4 to 5 million it takes quarterly, but if I can make a little bit of a difference, this is how I know this work is making a difference.
No, that's a great question. So my plug is going to be to let's support the organizing work that makes the power building in each city leverage and get the local mayors and cities to release those dollars. So I'll use Oakland and Indianapolis as two great examples. We've
Hmm.
been able through the local funding of an organizer at $75,000 a year, roundabout, to unlock tens of millions of dollars in both Oakland and Indianapolis. Just two examples of many that literally fund dozens of organizations to do this work. And what does it require? It requires us to have a person on the ground who is able to connect both the individuals directly impacted by this work, help them develop their stories, help them to kind of get in touch with the healing they need, but also be prepared to show up publicly to speak out to
Hmm.
elected officials in public meetings, to get hundreds of individuals to show up at a city council meeting, to get hundreds of individuals to show up in perhaps on a at a prayer vigil or a peace vigil, to get hundreds of individuals to support the programs that we just heard from, like the one in Columbus. That kind of work is an investment of $100 a month by 75 folks could literally get us an organizer in each city, which then
Hmm.
unlocks tens of millions of dollars in that city's municipal budget. Indianapolis has done an amazing work of getting that kind of stuff funded across multiple mayoral administrations. Oakland has done the same thing. Orlando has gone 6, 7, 8 months without a homicide in their city
Wow.
because of this kind of work. It's no accident that when the organizing and advocacy of this stuff spiked, the federal and some local state dollars infused resources into our city, and we saw a historic drop in the last 3 years. So I want to say if we fund organizing, if we support advocacy, then that pushes the systems to reimagine the way they use their local tax dollars. And that in turn puts a battery pack in the local
Mm.
peacemaking organizations so they can wake up every day, just like law enforcement wakes up every day to do their police fighting and crime fighting work. Now we have individuals, some of whom are directly impacted, some of whom have been trained in conflict resolution, behavioral, cognitive therapy, folks who are being coached at our CVI Leadership Academy at the University of Chicago that Dr. Chico and Dr. Marcus are leading, David Muhammad, Devone Bogan, Erica Ford. I could just keep naming names of individuals who are training folks every day to execute the strategies. We need the dollars at the local level to fund the strategies. And that happens through organizing and pushing people to do so.
I love this and I love you. I'm so grateful that you're doing this work. I want to say to y'all, again, from getting to know Pastor Mike just a little bit during this tour, his heart is for our people, y'all. Like, in
Mm.
real, real ways. I've seen. how these cuts have impacted him personally. And I probably gonna tell all your business. I'm sorry,
Hmm.
but just like watching how it's impacted him, his spirit, and the pain from this, I just really want us to surround him. He is a shepherd, right? He's got a congregation and a flock he leads, and he's leading this work too. But it takes a toll on you when your life's work and the thing that you know you feel called to do has been hit. It feels like, a failure, even when you didn't facilitate said failure. There are a lot of young people whose lives are going to be lost because of this very selfish, sick cut. And so I want us selfishly to surround my brother, for the mayors, state elected officials, county elected officials, those of you who know you can help to impact this work, do this. For those of
Mm.
you who have $100 to give every month towards this, he talked about if 75 of us just give $100 a month, we help to put someone who's boots on the ground and helps to organize and convene and facilitate millions of dollars of impact in this work. We've got to do it, y'all, because one thing we're learning on this tour, we all we got. So
We
when
all
the
we got.
listen, so when the people forget
Mm.
about how to protect the least of these,
Right.
that's where the Pastor Mikes of the world come in. And so I just want to publicly thank you for all you do above and beyond this, but certainly in this work. I'm so grateful that you use something so traumatic, several traumas, to utilize it for good so that other young people don't have the same experience you had, or all of those young folks who raised their hands in that funeral. I am praying that you can continue to do the work to prevent funerals like these from going forward. And most of all, I pray that in this work that you take care of yourself and know that here at Native Land Pod, you are always welcome home. But we gonna help welcome some of these dollars. Y'all, we didn't put out the buckets. We didn't
Raise
put
an
out the
offering.
buckets. We have
Yeah, yeah,
raised the
yeah.
offering. We need the love offering to be these young people gotta survive. Make sure y'all follow Pastor Mike McBride on socials. Where can they find you, Pastor Mike?
I am Pastor Mike underscore. I'm Pastor Mike underscore. I'm on let's see, Instagram
Mm-hmm.
and Facebook and Twitter. Haven't made it to the other ones yet. I'm on Blue Sky too. I think that's the new
Oh,
one
good.
everybody's on. So yeah,
Yes, I'm
hit us
locked out
up
of my
and
blue sky right now, but yes, I got to figure out
and
what I
and
set
and
up two accounts.
appreciate there are local people who you could literally connect with today. They're not hiding. If you need any help getting
Yeah.
connected with a local person, this is not a one man show. This is not a savior complex. There's hundreds of us working every day doing this, and we'd love to have more supporters and more people just to ask us questions, learn about how violence shows up in your own city. Just like me and Angela were at the juvenile hall with Jalen and a whole host, Michael Eric Dyson last week. Everybody should be connected to these young people. What did they say, Angela? They all wanted two things. They wanted
Man.
guidance and support. We asked them, what are the two things you want? They didn't say more money. They didn't say a house or car. These young people in juvenile hall told us that two things they wanted was guidance and
Mm.
support. That is free, right?
Mm.
That's just availability. Let's show up for our young people. Let's save their lives. Let's make sure they can live free from violence and incarceration. And thanks again, Angela, for having
I love you. I appreciate it. Thank you so much, y'all. Make sure you support. I know he said it's not a savior complex, but he is one of my greatest teachers. I hope
me.
y'all follow Pastor Mike, and definitely let's live free. So I'm pledging my support. Y'all join me. I'm about to spend all my money trying to help the people right now, but that's what we got to do.
Amen.
All right. Love you, brother. Thank you.
Holla.
Welcome home, y'all.
Peace.
Bye bye. Native Land Pod is a production of iHeart Radio in partnership with Reason Choice Media. For more podcasts from iHeart Radio, visit the iHeart Radio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows. Yay.